Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hey there, welcome to the weekly Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is the podcast for investors who want to invest in real estate. We certainly are creative. We're not big on hard money loans. You can do it if you want. We teach it. But the fact is I'm going to teach you and put you in a position to where you're in control and you're using, possibly borrowing against yourself as opposed to borrowing against others, which is usually less costly and, believe it or not, even less risk. But more important than that is we teach you how to actually analyze the properties. If you're interested in that, go to realestatewithgarywilson.com. All right. Click on members area. If you're already a member, you know what to do. You go on the left-hand side. If you're not a member, you go to the right-hand side and get yourself a free look for about a month. The community sites out there, dozens and dozens of investor agents. These are real estate agents who are trained to work with you and me. I know because I've trained them myself, and they're certified. They understand wholesaling, flipping, buying rentals, managing rentals. They understand more than 30 different creative purchasing techniques, okay, and even understand commercial. So take a look at that. Also on the homepage, grab any one of the books you want. All 5 are free. I got 7 books. The first 5 are on the front page. Grab all you want and get all you can get. Now, we've got a special guest today, Brent Bowers. I'll be introducing him in just a second. And Brent, we have similar backgrounds, by the way, so I'm going to let him, I won't spoil the surprise, but Brent is a good investor, very good investor. And I think he's going to appeal to a large segment of your listeners right here. So Brent, without further ado, welcome aboard, man. And would you mind just, by the way, thank you for taking your time to do this. And I know you're busy. You're successful people usually are busy. But would you mind just telling people who are not familiar with you just a little bit about Brent? Who's Brent?
Gary, thanks so much for having me on the Massive Passive Cash Flow Pod. Great name, by the way. Cash flow is everything. So a little bit about me. I was in the military about 8.5 years. I started in real estate about 2007. Everyone knows what was going on in 2008. Had to borrow that first earnest. Luckily, I received as a buyer's agent for myself. Turned that into a rental property pretty quickly. Didn't really cash flow too well on that over that, 15 years I owned that parcel or that house. Joined the military for a while, and you and I have similar backgrounds as far as you were born in Grafenwehr. I got to train in Grafenwehr. I wasn't born in, and that's Grafenwehr, Germany. Yeah. Military was a great time, but I always had this urge, this passion to get back out so I can, be with my family. That 8.5 years I was in, I may have slept in my bed maybe 4 years of that. We were always training, always deployed, always gone, always. That takes a toll on the family. So God bless our military families. Great military, God bless the military, but the families that stay at home waiting, the kids, the wives, the husbands, the spouses. So I wanted to get out. So I got back into real estate, and I started with wholesaling houses and eventually led into a pretty good, massive, passive cash flow operation on vacant raw land. And we can talk more about that, but it was a great addition to my current house business. And now it's kind of taken front center stage of my business because it's all about cash flow. It's given us financial freedom, time freedom, travel when we want, be with the kids when we want, which, we're all entrepreneurs. We're always going to want to go. So, but the cash flow helps. So thanks for having me on. I hope that wasn't too long of an intro.
No, that was great. I appreciate everything you're saying and your background and your service. And I know it's been my family, without being too long in the tooth here, we both sides of my family were original settlers in the U.S. I mean, on my dad's side, the Hanks were actually original settlers in Jamestown, original permanent settlement in the New World. So I'm all about serving country, and it's part of me. My quadrant is, God first, then family. Sorry, God first, then country, then family, then business. So I appreciate that. I think a lot of our listeners will too. We got a lot of folks that listen around nearly almost 50 countries now, and a lot of them, I believe, are servicemen and women. So, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Now let me ask you this: a couple questions just to get things warmed up here. I've always invested myself in buying rentals, holding rentals, flipping, different variations of that, mixed use properties, things like that. But I never actually bought raw land other than for my own personal use. So I understand that's something you sort of evolved into. Would you mind explaining or giving us an example how investing in land differs from investing in single family or multifamily homes?
You kind of cut out on me, but I think I got the gist of that. Did you say that would you repeat that last part, please? Because you really cut out.
Yeah, I apologize. So how is investing in raw land different than investing in single families or multifamily properties?
Okay, that's what I thought you said. So why is raw land different from single and multifamily? I'll say one, because we don't have to worry about tenants or, hey, did you time? Now, granted, we do have land payments, but we don't. There's not as much things to upkeep. It's a more of a passive thing. They either pay their land payment or they don't. And if they don't, we take it back after a certain amount of time and we resell it to somebody else. So nothing ever breaks. I don't have to worry about toilets or roofs leaking or foundation problems. You name it. And I would say another reason why it differs is there's like zero competition. I probably lost half the listeners. Competition. Everyone's going after the crazy, stinky, dirty cat pee houses and the rundown rentals and the mice-filled multifamilies is what I like to call them. Yes, I invest in those things. However, my passion is the land because there's hardly any competition. There's nothing to fix. It's more passive. It's not emotional. So I would say that's the reason. My several reasons why it's different.
Okay. Well, it's interesting now. If you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about the where. Since we're talking about land, obviously land doesn't move. So we have listeners all over the world, but mainly in the U.S. and Canada. And we have, and a lot of agents are on too, real estate agents, because they serve the investors. They're trained to serve them. They are definitely geographically, positioned where they're not in helping people buy land in 25 different states. They're usually in one location. So in any case, the big question here is, in your travels and your experience, are there states in our country or parts of certain states that you would say tend to be better than others? Or is it kind of fill me in about the where? How does macro location tie into this,
So that's a really tough question because as real estate investors, we're usually micro locations, economies. It's hard to know a nationwide unless you're watching the news and they're talking about housing prices drop. No, they're looking from the east to the west, from the north to the south. I like to focus on smaller areas. So I don't want to pretend like I am some expert on the entire United States. I know that I'm in 8 counties, 3 states right now. I'll tell you the states: Florida, Arizona, Colorado. I love these states. And my biggest, I would say the bread and butter, 90% of the land I purchase is recreational on the outskirts of the city. 30 minutes away from the McDonald's and the Walmarts. That's the land that I can buy at 20, 30 cents on the dollar. Now, granted, there's another type of land. It's called infill lots, buildable lots. This is stuff that home builders will buy or home flippers will buy that are just wanting to build a from the ground up house, spec house is what we call those. Or maybe it's Sally and Jim Smith, and they're going to buy this piece of land and one day build a house. So I would say, and this is in our business, and that could be anywhere where there's a growing city, you can buy the infill buildable lots. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're like me and you do mostly residential, the stuff that you're just trying to get monthly payments on, very easy to buy, very affordable to buy. That's pretty much areas where there's a lot of land. Colorado, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona. Now, if I'm focusing on infill lots only, I'm looking in Tampa, Florida. I'm looking in Colorado Springs, Florida, places like that. So I can't really answer your question, what area is bad and what area is not, but that's how I focus on an area. What type of land? Some guys only like to buy recreational land. Some guys like the infill lots. I like to do both because there's two different buyers, two different sellers.
Right. Well, that's interesting. So the good news is it doesn't sound like it's extremely difficult. Like it's a niche within a niche. It sounds like there's a variety of the different types of land you can buy. So how do you actually locate the property in the market? Say outside your own area. Like say I'm in Florida, but I hear Colorado and Arizona are great. How do I actually accomplish that if I'm sitting with a palm tree, drinking a tropical drink in Florida?
Yeah, you cut out. I mean, how can you actually accomplish that? And then that was it. That was the last thing I heard.
I was just saying if I'm in Florida, sipping a tropical drink under a palm tree, how do I actually locate properties in Arizona and Colorado and those areas?
I love that you asked that. I look for volume. So how do I find volume? I go on Zillow. I want to see that there's stuff being sold out there and there's stuff being bought. So how do you find that out? So you can go on Zillow solds. No solds. That means I'm not going to that market because no one's buying any land there in that county. Now, granted, there might be a lot of solds and nothing available for sale. There's two different tabs you can choose there, the for sale and the solds. So if there's only solds and nothing for sale, that means there's a lot of demand and no supply. I'm definitely going for that area. I want to see volume mostly, but I love to see demand because I know when I buy a piece of land there, it might be harder to buy it because there's a lot of demand, but I know I'm going to be able to sell it. It's almost like a seller's market type thing. Now let's flip that coin. There are a ton of for sale, hundreds of them, and no solds in the last 6 months. That tells me there's a lot of supply, no demand. So it's basically, what is that telling me? It's a buyer's market for me. So I need to go, if I'm planning on picking that area, I need to literally pay pennies on the dollar. Volume. I also like to see, and it's the same thing with volume. I like to see that there's people in that market doing deals, because what does that tell me? It tells me what the land's worth. It tells me a lot of things. I don't look at schools or is the area growing. I just want to see there's deals being done because one, is there a lot of demand? Is there a lot of supply? Is there volume? And lastly, how in the heck do I comp this land? What is it worth? What can I sell this land for if I were to buy it? And I figure that out by seeing the deals being done. So that's kind of how I pick an area. I kind of just go, I focus on I'm in Colorado Springs. So I go 30 minutes outside of that, away from where you can see the skyscrapers or the big buildings, because that's where land is a little bit cheaper and cities tend to expand. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, that helps an awful lot. I've always wondered myself, and I'm in the business, and we all have different resources, LoopNet, CoStar, Crexy, things like that. But having feet on the ground, and I know we could probably use local, county level property records, things like that, like your assessor's database. If you can purchase it or have direct access to it, that would help too. But I found out they're not always available in different parts. So have you ever used a county's tax assessor's website and search for raw land? If you instead of using Zillow, because I guess the question is, can you do that consistently? Because it seems like some parts of the country are very easy to do that, and others aren't. So
that's a good point. And I apologize, we have a bad connection, but you're asking if I could use the county assessors or the county websites to figure out what the land's worth. In the beginning, I used to do that, but I found out there were better resources to kind of use more on I don't want to say nationwide, but multiple county operation. So I really who is probably going to be the smartest people in that area? And that's usually realtors. Now, granted, not all realtors like to deal in land, especially land that's like under 20 or 30 or $40,000. You can call a realtor and ask like, hey, are you a land expert? And they're probably going to say no. Well, great. Can you refer me to someone that knows anything about the land in this county? And then get that person's phone number and, serve them, work with them. How do we work together? What's land going for per acre in this section?
Yeah.
Realtors are like, that's where you use that Zillow resource, check out the for sale, check out the solds, and go off of that. And then number 3, my preferred method, I kind of use all 3 of these, especially when starting a new market. But my preferred method is going to the land websites, land.com, landwatch.com, landcentury.com, landflip.com. So I look at all 3 of those, and in 30 minutes, I could get all, like, how much is it going per sell price, and I can pretty much become an expert in 30 minutes on what land is worth if I just really wanted to deep dive into a county. So I rely on the experts with that. I don't really like to mess with the county data anymore because a lot of times it's just hard to read, and I'm not a numbers guy, so I want to get in and out of that pretty quickly. Now, I understand there's a lot of engineers on this show, so let me break it down for the engineers. I'm not an engineer mind, so I want to do my best to explain it. Is I always try and figure out what the miles within the last 6 months sold. I try and use average of Zillow, what Zillow for sales are, what Zillow solds are, what that realtor tells me, and what the land website. So I'll take a culmination of all those and then average it, because you're never going to be dead on. Like, okay, it's not like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on the east side of the tracks. It's not as easy as houses. However, you can do an average. And when you offer 30 cents on the dollar, 40 cents on the dollar, there's a lot of room for negotiate if you find out something you don't like about the property, or, hey, by the way, this one's got water and sewer and a road going right to it, and it's got a view, a nice mountain view, and sometimes it's worth even more than what we thought. We always go on the lower end of it. So we're taking averages. Land, there's no 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses on it, so you got to just go off the average. And then if you're looking for a land expert, I want to throw one more tip. Yep. You can go to landwatch.com or land.com, and you can see the actual they call it the signature premier partner or the land specialist in that you're interested in, and their name, photo, information, phone number will be there. Call that person. Like, we get calls all the time because we're land specialists in a few areas, and we'll help people out. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't. It's a small business. It's a very small part of real estate. So there's not a lot of people. So make friends with the other land investors. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to ask more about like building your team and all that. But first, what I want to ask is, when is there a time, economically speaking, that's better to buy land? Like, in other words, it feels like at the peak of a market, and 10 years ago we were at the bottom of the market, and it feels like we're going to have another correction sometime. So is there a timing factor here, like that you discovered in your own investing, that helps to make sense when is the best time to buy more or buy less land?
So that's a good point. I started really buying land in early 2016. Buying land, not houses. So I know that one thing we just went through, and we're still going through it, is COVID. I was extremely afraid last year, come April 1st. I thought all of our almost 100 land notes were going to stop paying for their land. I'll tell you what happened. It was an absolute reverse what happened. We started selling more. We had one default, and we actually were able to kind of get that. Found another payments. So, a market correction, though, if the land loses a ton of value, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference with recreational land. it will make a difference with infill buildable lots. I know a lot of these guys, they'll try and buy the land. If, for instance, builders building a house, I'm going to use really round numbers, for $100,000. That builder can usually spend about 20 to 25% of the actual total sale for that cheap anymore right now. So for a quick example, though, really round numbers, it'd be $20,000 or $25,000. Let's do a $200,000 sold house. They could pay up to almost 40 or 50 grand for that lot. Now that's the market that struggles the most. Now, as far as recreational, people lose their jobs, they're losing their houses, and they're paying a note. What are they going to pay first?
Right.
Their cell phone bill or their payment or their raw land? It's going to be the raw land. They're going to stop paying for that. They're going to pay their cell phone bill first. People pay their cell phone bill over the rent all the time. So, you just got to realize you're in a stacking order, and you will probably get a lot of land back, and you're going to have to resell it. So that's the unfortunate of a major market correction like 2008, 2009. I know some land investors that lost half their notes. So the biggest thing is don't be over leveraged. Don't borrow. You said it on the beginning of your show. Don't or have the land paid for free and clear, because you have so much more options when you have little debt. Now, granted, here's my disclaimer. I've done this with partners. I've done this with bank financing. I've done this with credit card financing, and I've done this with private lenders. So most of my portfolio, other than 3 properties, is completely paid for.
Nice.
So, but I didn't start there, and we just keep our debt very, very low. Just for that reason, because, my passive income to be so much more than my monthly outgoing expense each month, because then that gives you time freedom and financial freedom.
Yeah. But I tell you what, that's a huge tip right there, man. I appreciate that. So let's talk about this. A moment ago, the prior question you mentioned, having agents in the areas that are specialized in land. So the bigger picture is, just like any business, we're entrepreneurs, we want to scale and grow. So what's it like to build a team and scale your business when it comes to the land business? Is it, the same, different, or kind of if you could paint a picture of that would be awesome,
What is it like to build your business and hire a team? Susan Lassiter Lyons, I took this from her book, Getting the Money, is, hire where you plan to be, not where you currently are. So building a team, hiring a team, bringing people on board is scary.
Yep.
But here's the thing, get over it, because it is amazing. While we're sitting here on this podcast, we're probably buying a piece of land or selling a piece of land or something. Hopefully, something is happening in the business. So you got to get over that. Your team is going to make mistakes. Heck, you make mistakes every day. Just be aware that that's going to happen. Know it's going to happen for the best. No one is ever going to do it well. Us as entrepreneurs, we always think that no one's ever going to do it as good as I do it. Well, that's not true. There's people out there that will do everything you do even better, especially if they're responsible for it and like what they're doing. Because I have some, amazing virtual assistants. We call them VAs. They're in the Philippines. They're in India. They are my family. They treat this business just like it's literally as if it's an employee. Starbucks doesn't. They call them. I just drew a blank. I think they call them team members. But long story short, I don't call my team employees. They're my team. They're my family. And even if they're on the other side of the world, they work the same hours we do. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. No, during the daylight hours, basically. And they're on all of our meetings. And we always hire people full time. I don't believe in part-time work, because if they're working for me part-time and someone else part-time or freelancing, they've got to hustle over here. Your vision is not the number one priority for them. If you can take care of their income needs and they can focus on one thing, they're going to do amazing things for you. So that's my biggest tip with hiring a team, is hire full-time, love them, correct them, well, as far as correction, as far as what they're doing, and know they're going to make mistakes, and we're all human, and laugh about it. That it's because it's going to happen.
Yeah, we have a couple of sayings on my team. We call everybody team members. We don't have the term staff or employees. We're all team members. And one of the sayings on the team is this: is the teamwork makes the dream work. The teamwork makes the dream work. And the acronym for team is TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. So we look for attitude, and then we look for aptitude. Because I can train anybody that's got some degree of intelligence, but attitude comes from within. So, hey, another question. This is going to be particularly for you and me and all the veterans and active duty and reserve men and women out there. How can veterans in particular get started in real estate investing, and why might this option be a good option for them to explore?
Yeah, and that's the whole reason why I got started in land. I originally started with wholesaling houses, and then I implemented land. And the reason for all this, I didn't explain too much, was I needed to get out of the military. I had to be home. I would be there, and now I have 3 wonderful, healthy children. I just wanted to be there, and I knew I had to replace that golden carrot that was in front of me. And the thing about the military, it's great. You're always improving and expanding and getting higher in rank and doing all these great things. And it's always new and exciting. Pay always increases, great benefits, great housing. However, you're always going to be a slave to time. You don't own your time when you're in the military. Like the military tells you where to go. And that was where I wanted to change. It wasn't the finances, like money was okay. But I knew that I needed to replace like $6,000 a month. And I was able to do it with land. So for instance, my average note it's well over 600 now, but it was about $497 a month was my average note. So I knew I needed to do about 12 of those, 12 land deals. I call them notes. So if we sold the land, we have a note now paying us every month. So I knew I needed to do 12 of those to replace that military salary. Focused on land more was because it allowed me the geographical freedom. I was training in the field, and I was able to buy land by just going on and doing research on the internet. Well, when I built a team, it was a little easier. They did the research for me, but I was able to close the deals virtually. I didn't have to go to the land. I didn't have to meet the seller. I was able to get boots on the ground, as you said, the title company to take care of it. And I just closed with a wire and a mobile notary a lot of times. So I did it. I solved the geographic problem that we all have when we're in the where we want to be.
Yeah. Well, I like that. Hey, what's interesting here is, we have a lot of first-time home buyers out there right now. There's just, new construction can't keep up. It's a crazy market. So what would you say to first-time home buyers? Like, what are say maybe 3 things that they don't consider when it comes to buying, particularly when it comes to buying land if they want to buy and build, for example, or in any situation, just buying land. If there are three things that first-time home buyers should probably consider.
Home buyer, don't buy a piece of land and build a house. I just did one. I had a general contractor do it for me. We made a very nice profit on it. I mean, almost 6-figure profit, a few thousand short of 6 figures. However, it was time consuming. It was difficult. Regional building department inspections, failed inspections, you name it. And I had a general contractor. It was a long story. He got sick and went to another. But I don't recommend it. As far as a first-time home buyer, if you haven't ever bought a home, don't buy a piece of land and build a house unless you have a general contractor or have experience with building houses. Like, I'm not building houses. I'm buying the land at a massive discount and turning around and selling it at a premium with seller financing so I can get passive income coming in. So I don't recommend it. Now, other advice for first-time home buyers is the market's doing. Buy a house, because it gives you, it's literally, that is education. It's a little instruction, taking action, then you get a result. That's where the education comes from. So buy the house, and then you got tax benefits for it. You can write off that depreciation. Let me just say, I'm not a CPA. I don't know anything about taxes, but you can write off that mortgage interest. You can't do that when you're renting a house from another landlord. I just had to explain to a bank, because I'm doing a refi on a lake house, a house I lived in like 5 years ago, and I sold it. We bought it for $192. Made a good profit, but I just noticed that it just sold last month for $330. I bought it for $192. I wish I wouldn't have sold it. I looked at that and got depressed this morning. I bought it for $192. It sold for $330. And I was scared to death when I did it. And I was moving to a brand new duty station, I should say. And man, just buy the house and keep it. Don't sell the first one. Just keep it.
That's funny you said that. Very first house I ever bought, it was actually new construction in Virginia Beach. And 3 years later, I transferred, sold it. We basically couldn't compete with the builder, so we just took what we could get. And then we checked it out like 10 years later, 15 years later, sold for $315.
Oh,
yeah. That's the one I wish I'd have kept that one.
It's like our first vehicle, our first truck, our first car. Keep it, man. It's only you got time working for you, and that's amazing about real estate. Time always helps us. The land is never going anywhere. The house might have some damages, need repainted or new carpets. That's all part of it. Look at it as a forced savings account. So start with one. Now, granted, you could buy it from a new builder. That's awesome. But I wouldn't say buy a piece of land and strike out on building your own house. You better be ready.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate the advice, and I know we're getting short on time here. I know you're a busy guy, and I definitely appreciate you taking your valuable time to share this. But before we go, how can people get a hold of you? I mean, is a website, a free chapter, report, anything you can do to connect with the listeners? Because I think you're going to get some takers on this one. You
have a couple of ways. I would say if you want to reach out to me, you can follow me on Instagram. Go to Brent L. Bowers. That's Brent. L as in Lima. Bowers. Just shoot me your email. I'll send you the free report. It's a 15 due diligence checklist items that I like to know about a piece of land before I buy it. And a lot of almost not. I made mistakes. And number two, if you want to check me out on thelandsharks.com, that's TheLandSharks.com, thelandsharks.com. And it talks about my coaching course and all that I do for people.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. So for everybody listening, just remember that. So thelandsharks.com. Okay. And then Brent L. Bowers 1. All right. So either way, you got a way to connect there and get the free report, everybody. Get the checklist. I mean, that's invaluable when you have a guide like that from an expert like Brent. You can't put a price tag on that. And maybe you get lucky, and then he'll have time in his schedule to work with you one-on-one to help you get started. So in the meantime, also remember, go to realestatewithgarywilson.com. Grab any one of the 5 books on the front page. Heck, grab all 5 if you want. They're all free. Go to the YouTube channel, Real Estate with Gary Wilson. There's 5 different playlists for different subjects: wholesaling, buying rentals, managing rentals, commercial, even personal development is out there, because you need to do that it's who you are as a person, right? It's the being thing before you can do and you can have. So money is, the end game. People think I'm going to make a lot of money. The money really isn't the end game. It becomes a measurement of who you had to become as a person to be able to make that kind of money. Okay. So that's my preaching moment for today. But in any case, say, Brent, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say thanks again. And we'll look forward to having you another time. By the way, any final words of wisdom before we part ways here?
No, I love that you said, if you want to make the money, you got to become the person that attracts that type of money. Big Jim Rohn fan, and I think he said something similar to that. I think you said it better, actually, though. But thanks so much for having me on the Massive Passive Cash Flow Show.
You got it. Hey, hang on one second here, and we'll do a proper send-off. Everybody take care. God bless you and your families, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.